Welcome to Spoiled Vision Movie Recaps. Today, we explore the 2011 action crime drama, The Prey. Spoilers ahead, proceed with caution. The film commences with a portrayal of Adrien Franck, a prisoner convicted of a €2 million robbery. He shares his cell with Jean-Louis Maurel, who was imprisoned for a sexual offense. One night, 3 inmates enter their cell with the intention of tormenting Louis due to his criminal history. These men bribe the warden to gain access. In response to Louis' suffering, Adrien intervenes and fights the 3 inmates, nearly losing his life in the process. Thankfully, guards break up the brawl. The following day, Adrien and Louis receive visits from their respective wives. Anna, Adrien's wife, inquires about the stolen money's whereabouts, but Adrien withholds the information as he still mistrusts her. During the visit, Anna brings their daughter to the prison. Adrien is initially hesitant, not wanting his daughter to see him as a prisoner, but his longing overcomes his reservations. Louis' wife informs him that their lawyer is working to secure his release, as the victim's family has dropped their demands. While the inmates watch their monthly show, Adrien is unexpectedly attacked by another inmate wielding a screwdriver. The attacker demands the location of the stolen money, as he is about to be released. When Adrien refuses, the assailant stabs his ear until he loses consciousness. Adrien receives medical treatment at the prison clinic and remains unconscious for 3 days. Upon regaining consciousness, Louis informs Adrien that he has been released as all charges against him have been dropped. Louis expresses gratitude for Adrien's earlier assistance and shares his phone number, offering support if needed. Before leaving, Adrien asks Louis for help in meeting his wife and reveals that he concealed the stolen money in his late father's grave. Initially, he went to the bathroom to collect the remaining hair from Adrien's comb, a deliberate act that suggested Louis was saving the hair for future crimes. A few days later, a former police commander named Manuel visited Adrien. Manuel sought information about Louis, who had shared a cell with Adrien. Adrien explained that he wasn't very close to Louis and considered him an ordinary and innocent person. Manuel disagreed, revealing Louis as a heinous and manipulative rapist and serial killer. Louis could convincingly feign innocence in front of his victims. Manuel knew this firsthand as he once tried to rescue a victim from a fire set by Louis, though the victim ultimately didn't survive. He had attempted to arrest Louis, but lacked concrete evidence and witnesses. Hearing this, Adrien was in disbelief, as he had entrusted his wife and daughter to Louis. Meanwhile, a female police officer named Claire and her team were on an operation to apprehend a drug dealer. Claire disguised herself as a prostitute to confirm her target, and once sure, initiated an ambush. A shoot-up between the drug dealers and the police erupted, but Claire easily subdued the drug dealer, who was already cornered in a bathroom. Back in the prison, while Adrien was at work, a prison warden and 3 inmates threatened him. Adrien initially believed Anna had taken their child elsewhere, so he left a letter for her, indicating his intention to search for them. Unfortunately, Claire and her team had surrounded the location. Initially, they couldn't find Adrien, but Claire discovered a freshly written letter on the table, prompting a thorough search. When Adrien was located, Claire immediately drew her gun and called for assistance from a colleague who was still in the building. However, Adrien managed to elude Claire's pursuit by leaping from a window and boarding a speeding train. Later that evening, Adrien visited his father's grave to check if the stolen money was still hidden there. To his dismay, the money was gone, and instead, he discovered Anna's lifeless body in the tomb. It became clear that Louis had stolen the money and murdered his wife. Adrien's heart shattered as he mourned the loss of his wife and daughter. Adrien promptly contacted Louis and inquired about the whereabouts of his daughter. Louis assured him the child was safe for now, but warned of potential harm if Adrien attempted to track him down. Louis abruptly ended the call and initiated a ruse by planting Adrien's DNA and the victim's clothing at the murder scene, framing Adrien as the perpetrator. Louis deliberately placed the victim's body at the location where Adrien had hidden after the robbery. The following day, the police investigated this spot and discovered the charred remains of 2 teenage girls, one of whom was the daughter of a former police officer named Thomas. Witnessing this, Thomas was both furious and heartbroken. The police began to suspect Adrien as the perpetrator of the girls' murders, Despite Claire's lingering doubts, considering Adrien's sole criminal record was the previous robbery. Meanwhile, Adrien sought Manuel's help to gather more information about Louis to track him down. Although retired, Manuel had been conducting private investigations secretly to apprehend Louis, but lacked solid evidence. He had received 2 bodies he suspected were victims of Louis, yet the DNA found didn't match Louis. Adrien provided Manuel with the phone number he used to contact Louis, prompting Manuel to trace the signal from that number by infiltrating the nearest police station and utilizing their tracking system. While Manuel was at the police station, Adrien, still at Manuel's house, suddenly heard police sirens. Realizing his location had been compromised, Adrien quickly left the place. At one point, Adrien took Claire hostage and directed 2 other police officers to lower their weapons. He explained to Claire that he had been framed and that Louis was the true culprit behind everything. After conveying his story, Adrien made his escape. Fortunately, Manuel arrived just in time and rescued Adrien using a car. In the process, Manuel sustained a gunshot wound and chose to sacrifice himself so that Adrien could get away. Before doing so, he handed Adrien a piece of paper with Louis' address. Adrien managed to escape the police and swiftly headed to the given destination in a stolen car. The next morning, Adrien staked out a pharmacy in the area because he recalled Louis' dependence on a particular medicine. He knew Louis would be in a state of panic without it. Meanwhile, Claire began to dig into Louis's files, convinced that Adrien was not a serial killer. She remembered an earlier encounter where Adrien had the opportunity to harm her with a gun, but showed no intention of doing so. In contrast, Louis and his wife were at a market with Adrien's daughter. While there, Louis spotted another potential victim. On their way home, they pretended to ask a young girl for directions to a hospital. Eventually, the girl, initially hesitant, entered their car, thinking they were not dangerous due to the presence of a young child. However, she soon realized she was being kidnapped, and a struggle ensued. The girl managed to escape into a forest, but, unfortunately, Louis caught up to her and killed her. The following day, Adrien observed Louis leaving the pharmacy he was supervising. Adrien then discreetly trailed Louis. After a substantial drive through a quiet, hilly area, Adrien ultimately discovered Louis' residence, a villa on a hill. In the afternoon, Adrien infiltrated the villa and found his daughter. Simultaneously, Claire arrived at the villa, growing suspicious of Louis as a serial killer after conducting a criminal analysis of his files. Adrien was overjoyed and relieved to see that his daughter was unharmed. Regrettably, just as Adrien and his daughter were about to escape, Louis and his wife suddenly appeared with rifles. Fortunately, Claire arrived in the nick of time, pointing her gun at Louis. Despite this, Louis managed to injure Claire with a gunshot before he pursued Adrien and his daughter. Adrien seized the chance to flee with his daughter, running up the hill to keep her safe from Louis. Claire, still alive, confronted Louis' wife and hurried to catch up with Adrien. Meanwhile, Louis found Adrien and shot him with a rifle in front of his daughter. Fortunately, Adrien clung to a tree branch at the edge of a cliff, surviving. Realizing Adrien was still alive, Louis attempted to finish him off, but was thwarted as Claire shot and killed him. Claire and Luciana tried to save Adrien, but Thomas, the father of one of the girls who had fallen victim to Louis' murders, appeared and shot Adrien. Thomas believed that Adrien was the one responsible for the rape and murder of his daughter. The following day, a search was conducted in the river area to find the bodies of Adrien and Louis, but only Louis' body was recovered. 3 months later, Claire visited Adrien's daughter at an orphanage. The film concluded with a scene in which Adrien's daughter received a letter in the form of a family sketch, father, mother, and daughter, sent by Adrien. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification for more movie recaps.